So one of the best parts of a tuna story is the eating part.
Man, that's the best part of the tuna story.
And we just partaked in a tuna fest.
Tunapalooza.
Tunapalooza. That's got a great sound to it, man. A really great sound. And I've got a fishing story.
Man, I want to hear your fishing story.
You want to hear that fishing story?
Yes, sir.
Let's get into that fishing story.
Let's do this. What's happening, folks? Langosta and JoJo here.
How's it?
Today, we're talking about bluefin tuna.
We are bluefin tuna and yellowtail action.
Yes, sir. And it's going to be an adventure. If you like to catch it, hook it, or eat it, we're going to be covering that on today's show.
Yeah, we will. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, Rifles, Rods, and Broads. Happy to be here and talking about tuna. Tunapalooza, Tuna Fest 2024.
Tunapalooza! Man, there's nothing better than the scream of a reel when you're heavy on a tuna.
There is nothing better when somebody's yelling biter and then somebody else goes off fresh one. Yeah, there's like boat lingo, and when you start hearing those screams, it's like you are on.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you what, this last trip we were on.
Dude, you guys scored. I feel so devastatedly negative about not being there.
FOMO.
I have massive FOMO. Now, if you stay tuned, you'll get to see some of the images of us butchering the fish because we didn't have a process this time.
Right.
So I got to partake in that, which is something I actually like to do.
You sure did. And this trip was awesome. This trip we planned out actually like last year.
Okay.
So Breaker, who we featured in earlier episode, he told us, hey, let's get on this Ranger 85. That's the boat that we went out on. It's out of San Diego, out of HM Landing. We booked this trip quite a while back, and a bunch of our club members went. So
what, like 4 or 5 of you?
Yeah. So it was myself, it was Misha, it was Breaker, it was Really, and John Squirrel. So Squirrel came down from Washington for this trip aboard the Ranger 85.
The Squirrel came down from up north.
The Squirrel came down,
for the summer.
We had a good plan. We were going out on the Ranger 85. It's an 85-foot boat. It's a 3-day trip, so you could get as much limits of tuna as you can on that 3-day trip, and it was perfect timing.
So what's the daily limit? 2?
The daily limit's 2.
So you could have taken 6.
That's absolutely correct.
And many people did.
Many people did. So we went out on this adventure and we had a great time, man. Just to kind of started off, when we first booked the trip, we were kind of like the first ones that booked. Oh, okay. And as time kind of went on, there's a very popular fishing channel, fishing show, Stoked on Fishing.
Okay.
Fantastic show. You guys got to all check it out. But they ended up actually partnering with the Ranger 85, and this was their first sponsored trip on the boat.
Oh, how cool.
We learned about it that they posted on their site, their Instagram, their social, hey, Ranger 85, we're sponsoring this Stoked on Fishing. So Shay actually jumped on the boat, and that was kind of something that was going to be exciting to see, that he was going to be on board, great giveaways, filming, all that stuff. So it's going to be on a future episode of their show as well. We went out on a 3-day trip. It left H&M Landing at 11 a.m. and then we're going to be out for the next 3 days trying to hook into that tuna. And all while, if ever you book a trip on board a boat, you're always looking at the fish counts like 3-4 weeks ahead of time.
Sure.
And you're just tracking it like, hey, what are people catching? 28 anglers, 27 bluefin, this much yellowtail. And 2 weeks prior to this, the bite really wasn't hot.
No, it had cooled off.
It had cooled off. There was like
I could see panic in Chuck's eyes.
There was panic, and I was even panicking too. I was like, oh my God, is it going to be good? Is it not going to be good?
Is it going to be a whale watching trip?
Oh man, we were hoping for that not to be a whale watching trip.
Yeah.
And you know what? It wasn't. So as we kind of started to kind of get ready that week, the bites started getting hot, and it was just like, we are in for a good one. And the whole plan was that they're biting further out. So the big fish, because at this point in time, the big fish were biting where you'd come across schools 80, 100, 150 pounds. And then you come across larger schools of like the 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 pounders.
Yeah.
We ended up going out to the bank. When we left the harbor, it was like an 8 to 10 hour kind of ride out into the fishing grounds. And it's definitely a long ride, but the anticipation and kind of just being with friends, it makes it seem like it's a lot shorter, right?
Yeah. No, the boat full of our lunatics pals.
Yeah.
They're lunatics. They're just crazy.
It was just awesome. And then, you get fish on a boat, you get reeling on a boat, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. So we rode out there, and as I mentioned, we kind of left at 11 o'clock. So you leave at 11. You're at the bait barge. You're grabbing bait. So then you're heading out. So our real first time, kind of really fishing for the tuna when they started popping up on the fish finder was at nighttime, which is obviously here in Southern California, when you're night fishing for tuna, you're really going after the big boys.
Yep.
So some of them were popping up on screen, but as goes with tuna fishing, you never know if they're actually going to bite or if they're not going to bite. And that night we had 28 anglers on the boat, and they just weren't biting. There were a lot of people using all kinds of different equipment, from some 500 gram BFTs to your more longer 500 gram longer knife jigs, and they just weren't biting. And we fished it hard. We fished it hard until 4:30, and then Captain Jake basically said, "Hey guys, if you guys are still out there fishing, because you've probably been on a fishing boat, and it kind of dies down."
Oh yeah.
Right. From midnight, you've got 28 guys on the rails. At 1 o'clock, you're down to 26. 2 o'clock, you're down to 15. And by the time 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock runs around, you got your hardcore dudes kind of going out there fishing, and you maybe got 10, 15 people left. And we're definitely a part of that crowd. So we got some shut-eye, and then we woke up the next morning, and it was fly line time. So
totally opposite.
Totally opposite, Obviously, like at nighttime, you're more so kind of sending that jig down, using your heavier rod and reel combo. And during the daytime, when we woke up that morning after our short 1 hour of sleep, we were putting our more light/medium gear out there just to try to get fish to bite with the sardines that they got, and we fly lined them. And I tell you what, the moment that we heard the first biter, it was on.
It just lit up.
It just lit up. Langosta, I cannot tell you. I've been on a few boats, not a lot of boats, but I've been on a few boats, and this trip was just freaking amazing, because it was literally everyone was just yelling, "Biter, fresh one."
No, when you have an open bite, look, I'm not a fisherman. I'm not. I'm a shooter, a hunter. I go fishing to hang around with you guys, and mostly I like bluefin tuna. But when the bite is on, this is when my favorite part starts to occur, which is called the catching part. I suck at fishing, but I love catching.
Yeah.
And man, when the whole boat lights up and everybody's hooked up, it is pandemonium, absolute 100% organized chaos.
It was awesome. And just to kind of show you the quality of fish, and I've got a lot of pictures that will kind of like walk through this trip, but this is like the quality of fish that we were seeing that next morning when we were sending out that fly lining those fresh sardines. But this is a bluefin that I picked up, one of my first ones, and this baby put up a good fight, and it was fun, man. There were so many people just kind of catching on the boat, and whenever you're catching on the boat and not fishing on the boat, time flies by fast.
Oh yeah.
But we had a great trip. There was a lot of bluefin tuna to go around. Again, this is kind of some of the smaller sizes, in between 20 and 60 pounds that were coming up regularly.
As far as eating goes, I like eating that, man. I enjoy it. It's supposed to have less mercury count, the smaller fish, because larger fish eat more bait fish with mercury, supposedly.
Right.
I don't really know. But as far as like the loins and the cuts and all that, and the fighting. If you were to get bit by 2 95-pounders and you bring them in, you're kind of like, you're done for the day.
You are beat.
You're beat. I mean, even one you're beat. I've seen some of those guys dragging one in 40 minutes in, and you're nervous as hell, because if he breaks off, it's like all for nothing. It's a winner take all.
And that's kind of the funny part about like tuna fishing too, right? So when you haven't gone for a long time and you hook onto that first fish, regardless of the size, afterwards, after the fight, because the fight's going to take you, 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes, your arms and your shoulders and like your mentals are just kind of beat like, oh man, how am I going to last this whole trip?
Right.
And it's just kind of like an automatic natural function that you bring that one on board, you feel beat up for a few seconds, you celebrate, the adrenaline's rushing, you hook that bait back on and you're back in the water.
Yep.
And you don't realize like what your body can go through. Every time you feel like you're going to be done, you go back for more.
Well, the adrenaline keeps you going for sure. So let's see what other ones came up on board.
So we've got a lot of fish on board, and
Look
as we kind of switch over to species, one of the other things, and that's Captain Jake of the Ranger 85 right there.
Jesus.
And you look at that yellowtail, man, and that is like great.
I've never seen
yellowtail.
I've never seen yellowtail that big. What the yellowtail that I've caught, and I've considered myself lucky to even catch that, was something like that.
Yeah,
about yay big.
No,
I've never caught something that almost hits the deck.
The yellowtail that we were catching were just absolutely amazing, and we actually caught those on the second morning. Yeah. So when it came to the flight line, what we did find, because really when somebody catches the first fish, the question is, what are you using, right? So it's like, okay, so let's everybody follow the guidelines. Are they finicky? Are they biting at 40? Are they biting at 30? What we found for the tuna, at least, was that we were using like a number 4 size blacktail, a Mutu circle hook, and that worked perfectly. And guys were using anywhere between a 20 pound and a 25 pound fluorocarbon leader.
So that's light.
It was light
for the size of fish that we'll see later.
So it was light. So there was a lot of time, because if you're catching your first fish, you're not going to want to put that line back in the water, right? It's already been tested. So you're tying it up again, but it worked out. Some people got broken off. Some people didn't get broken off, but really that magic pound test was between that 20 and that 25 for the tuna. But the second morning when we woke up and the yellowtail bite kind of came on, that was just all jigs. Those were the yo-yo jigs. When we found them, the yellowtail yo-yo jigging got down to the bottom. They were about 1/3 of the way up from the bottom, and the bite was on. It was crazy. And the good thing about it is that all of the yellowtail, this was the size. These 20, 30, 40 pounders were coming up just like in this picture. And it was just like, what the heck is going on? They were just like monster mutated yellowtails that, were consistently this size. And it just, it was amazing. You can see here just again, the size of the yellowtail. And that was my tag number for the day, was number 20. Stoked about that. But that yellowtail, that hamachi, that sashimi was just freaking amazing,
delicious, man. Delicious stuff.
Yeah, and that happened fast. So kind of going back to the tuna side of things, again, we had 28 people on the boat. In one day, we picked up 105 bluefin.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
When that bite was on, it was on. And across the boat, it was just like 105 bluefin in that one day. And it just didn't stop. And it was amazing, man.
There must have been hundreds of them in there, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe thousands.
It was awesome. And then the yellowtail, we picked up, 40 to 50 yellowtail. Whew. So it was great. The guys from Stoked on Fishing, Shay, he's going to have great footage, man.
Yeah.
He's going to have great footage. He was just like,
it's going to be good. It's going to be good.
Yep, it's going to be great. And this tuna that I have here in the shot right here, Misha picked up this one. This was one of the bigger ones that were on the trip. When we got into the big schools, there again were 30, 40, 50 pounders. And this bad boy that Misha picked up right here in this picture was a 75 pounder. And this one gave him a really good fight.
No kidding.
To the point that
he's a monster.
It was a monster, and he was may have been tapping out a little bit.
He almost gave the rod to somebody else.
Or he did.
He considered it,
or he did it.
Okay.
We'll save that story for another day.
You know, there's supposedly some fish stories about fish.
Yeah, there's some fishing stories about fish, but Fish was a multi-tool guy. He actually caught some bluefin on a spinner combo. He got his bluefin on his conventional combo, and then he ran into this bad boy, which was roughly about 75, 80 pounds. We didn't weigh everything out, but you can kind of see here in the picture, that's a nice size bluefin.
Brute. He's a brute.
Yep.
He's big.
And I'll tell you what, on the Ranger 85, they had great accommodations. There's a few staterooms that are on the Ranger 85. So if you book early and you want to book a stateroom, you can actually save them for you. And there's actually 2 bunks in the stateroom.
All right.
And then there's a couple of larger bunk areas. So if you've never been on a fishing boat, one of the things that you're going to want to make sure that you check out before you go on board is what are the accommodations that they have, because most of them are going to be bunk style, or if you kind of get in more to the higher priced trips, you're going to have your own stateroom that you're probably going to be sharing with a buddy, and then just make sure you got to check out whether or not you got to bring your own pillow, sheet set, all that stuff.
Yep.
But the accommodations were great. The food was awesome. Marianne was the cook on board. She did a great job. Sweet. They had a bunch of deckhands that were well experienced, so they did a really good job. Captain Jake, he was just up all day, all night. He was so into fishing that it really made you feel confident that you were going to get into stuff. But the Ranger 85 had some great accommodations. They had their Starlink going. So, when the fishing wasn't happening, you're cruising around over to the next spot or eating lunch. You had your Netflix going or what have you. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. It made that 3-day trip go by really fast. Again, when you're catching fish versus fishing for fish, it makes time go by fast. Because I've been on boats, and I think everybody that's been out on boats have had those situations where it's like you are literally fishing or whale watching and kind of going with that,
I've gone whale watching with no whales. That's what fishing with no fish is.
Yeah, I've had those trips as well.
Yeah.
Here's another shot of just kind of like the boat. So, as we're cruising around, they got the trollers out, and by number, you got the trollers, and these are some of the Redondo Rod and Gun Club boys just kind of hanging out. Myself, we got Misha. We're up on the trollers using our hour, partaking in some beverages.
You guys look very uncomplicated.
Oh, man.
As Defrost would say.
And look at how comfortable we are, too.
Very uncomplicated, man.
One of the
relaxation.
One of the first things that I learned while going on these boats is a piece of gear that you must have is a foldable chair.
Oh, yeah.
Those foldable chairs come in handy. They are so comfortable, and you have no idea when the moment calls and you sit in one of those on a boat. It's freaking amazing.
It's a lot better than sitting on the bait bucket.
A lot better.
A lot better.
So, note to self, if you guys are taking notes and best practices, bring a folding chair when you go on a multi-day fishing trip. It's amazing.
You'd be surprised that they don't give you a hard time about bringing it on board.
Yeah, so it was really good. And then just kind of going over.
Oh my gosh, just look at it.
Look at that, man.
At that, kids.
That is a what we call a dry aquarium.
That is a dry aquarium.
Look
I've
at
never heard that. That's pretty good. A dryer. Look at that, dude. Look at the size of the fish.
Yeah, man.
Look how they take up all the deck space, man.
Look at that. I gotta say, right? Look at those yellowtails.
Look at the yellowtail.
Look at that yellowtail.
They're the size of the bluefin, man. You got to understand, look, this is not the norm. A yellowtail that big is not the norm of what we catch. That's an exceptional trip. That's like you guys busted into like some private reserve area where you're not supposed to be fishing or something. That is epic size yellowtail.
Yeah, I know. It was crazy, man. That's one of the first times that I fought a yellowtail that size. And I'll tell you what, you put a yellowtail up against a bluefin of the same size, that yellowtail is going to beat your ass so much more than
deep.
that bluefin.
They go deep, man.
Yeah, they go deep, and they're just trying to cut you on that rock. They dive for that rock, that reef, trying to just cut your line. And a lot of times they're successful.
Sure.
We had guys fishing 60-pound leaders, and they were getting cut.
Wow.
And those yellowtails, as soon as they knew they were hooked, they were just like gone for the fences, and they successfully survived to see another day of fishing. So there was a lot of guys that kind of like got their lines cut just because that's just yellowtail fishing, right? Yeah. They're running for that reef and they'll cut you. For the most part, that yellowtail fight is just absolutely amazing. This is the boat when they lay out the fish and they kind of tell you, hey guys, okay, come check out your catch because we've got them out of the holds. You got some more fish here. And this was kind of interesting. So this fish right here that kind of stands out amongst the rest as I have my little, pointer mouse going over it. That was the last fish of the trip. And that was the icing on the cake. So the Ranger 85, Captain Jake and the crew, they actually put out the kites. And the way that they worked it is that they put out the kite. And once they had a fish on, they'd have everybody's number in a basket. And it was a random draw. If they drew your number, that was your fish.
All right.
And this was the last fish of the day. It was freaking exciting. The sun was just about to go down. We're on the backside of San Clemente Island, and the tuna were just foaming.
Oh my God.
They were just feeding at the top, and you could just see them.
They're yelling that at the boat all the time.
Yeah. The lingo of sport fishing in Southern California or California is freaking amazing. Yeah, so they're just foamers up at the top, and they're all of this size. And Captain Jake just lined up the Ranger 85 and dropped their kite onto this foaming school of bluefin, and this puppy came up. It was not my number, but I was happy to see the fight. This fight took their rod and reel combos on the kites they're made for big fish, so this fight took maybe about 30 minutes, but this puppy was over 150 pounds.
Yeah, baby.
That was over 150 pounds of straight California bluefin tuna. It was a great cap to a great trip. We were pretty far away, and being on the 3-day trip, we had to start heading back. We had a fantastic time. So that's just another picture of, as we laid out the fish, some of the fish that we caught on board. And you can see here, this is Shay from Stoked on Fishing. Super cool guy. If ever you're on a trip and you see that it's sponsored by a certain company or a certain show, it's always a great trip to be on. Shay from Stoked on Fishing. Hopefully one day that we can collaborate and he'll be on our show or we'll be on his show. But this is him in his bloody coat right there.
Bloody decks.
Yeah.
Bloody coats.
Bloody decks, bloody coats.
Signs of a good time.
Yeah.
Fishing anyway.
It's going to be great footage. He had his drone out there, and they actually had some great giveaways that they're raffling out. So
cool.
Super stoked. Met some great people on the trip.
Let's talk about what we did when we brought the fish back home.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So we brought the fish back home, and here is the catch. Here's the catch between myself and Misha there. Obviously, again, with limits, 3-day limits to bluefin.
Very nice. Very nice.
And when we brought it back home, one of the first texts when I got reception was to you, Langosta.
Yes, sir.
And it said, hey, coming back, got fish, meet at the club, chop them up. And you said,
we can do that. Let me bring out my knives. Now, look, you may not know this. But I am banned for life. I'm banned for life. For my life and future life, banned for life, cutting fish at my house. My wife has fucking ixnade on the fillet. I cannot cut fish at home because I turn it into a production line, right? And then it smells for 14 days in the driveway like rotting fish.
Yeah.
So like little bits, little bits of fish stay out there. You turn hose down and it doesn't quite come out. So I'm banned for life. So this is the kitchen at the Redondo Rod and Gun Club.
It is. And look at this tool, man. What the hell do you have here?
That's my tiny little knife. That's made for, dude. I saw those pictures you guys had of those big fish, bro, and I'm having flashback of my YouTube channel for the Japanese cats at the market chopping the fish. I'm like, oh, must get bigger knife.
Aren't those satisfying? Dude, like when they bust out the swords and they're just like,
That's what I'm saying.
So smooth.
That's what I'm saying, man. That's what I'm saying.
But if you're not an expert at cutting fish, what takes a minute on YouTube and then you try to replicate it,
yeah,
doesn't take a minute. It
could get messy.
It could get messy. But we had a couple of guys meet us down at the club. Langosta, obviously, you were there. Paul Defrost, he was there. Ron was there. Matt was there, all to kind of help out and clean and process the fish. Because when you go onto a fishing boat, if you have not been, you have a couple of different options, right? You can have the boat, if they have the option available, is to cut and clean right there onto the boat. Many companies actually, if you make a reservation, will meet you at the docks. They'll take your fish, they'll process your fish. You come back in 2 hours. It's, cut, filleted, as clean as you can get it, and it's vacuum sealed and vacuum packed. For this trip, Misha and myself really decided, hey, let's just go ahead and process these fish ourselves. And that's exactly what we did. We took it up to the club.
Yep. So
And
do you have a picture of the setup that we had outside?
I do. So this is a picture of the yellowtail before it's about to be processed.
Look at the size of that thing, dude.
So again, I'm 6'1", people. Look at the size of this yellowtail. This was just freaking amazing.
It's good stuff.
And again, this was just the size. Like the yellowtail bite out at the banks was hot. So you can kind of see our setup here.
Yep.
Langosta, you got yourself. We got fish there, Ron and Jackson. And look at this, man. Look at these stainless tables. Tell us a little bit about this, because before I got there, you guys had this all set up and ready to go. So what was the plan of action?
Somebody else dropped off like 4 of them, and the other, maybe it was 4 or 5 of them. Some of the other ones were more beat up, so we got rid of the ones that were beat up, and that's the one we kept. But they collapsed, so we store them on the side of the clubhouse. And Ron brought over the Easy Up because it's cooking hot outside there. And the truth is that there's just some stuff that you'd rather do outside. So the vacuum packing and kind of like the finished wrap stuff, it's better, in my opinion, to do inside.
Yeah.
Because the fish is more manageable and you don't get all that juice all over the ground. And like the part where you're breaking them down, which is what I was doing with my knives, that part is messy. Like there's scales, there's blood dripping off the table. It's the reason I got banned from home, from butchering at home. So we do all the real messy stuff there. And then we get big trays and all of the sectioned off loins and different cuts then get vacuum packed and et cetera. And then that's how we handle that.
So how many knives did you bring to the Tuna Fest, Tunapalooza?
Tunapalooza, man, it's a big event. So you need about 6-7 knives and a couple cleavers.
And one sword.
And a sword for dramatic effect. Although we did cut, there's a little short video clip, the one that Fish caught, the 80-pounder, 75-pounder. We did the ceremonial first cut with the sword. I'm hoping that we can get the smell off that sword. Because it's one of my nice, it's not a fucking fish cutting sword. It's like a real samurai sword. Or we'll have it like god awful rust on it, or something horrific may happen to.
Oh, dude,
my cold steel katana.
It was awesome, and I can tell you what, man. Like when we got back from this trip, because we arrived at 6 o'clock in the morning at H&M Landing in San Diego. It takes about an hour or two to kind of have everybody bring the fish out, claim your fish, pack your fish, put it in the cooler, blah blah blah, and then we're an hour and a half, 2 hours away from San Diego. So by the time we got to the club, it was lunchtime. We were tired, man.
You guys look crispy.
We were tired.
Crispy.
Totally crispy. And when I got home, got to see the family for a few hours to pack up to go to the club. Obviously we had our wives at the club, and it was just like, you know what, babe, I'm going to bring some tuna making kits, and I'll do my part in making sure that we're eating fresh fish. So while the cutting was taking place, there was a lot of cooking that was taking place as well. Yes, and we got to kind of partake in a meal, right?
Oh, it was so good.
It was so good. And it was just like, okay, well, what am I going to bring? I'm going to bring everything. So I had everything to make the spicy ahi. We had some ahi collars that were just broiled.
Delicious.
We had some, and this is your favorite, is the ahi katsu with the wasabi mayo and the uni sauce.
That stuff's killer.
It was just, or the unagi sauce, and it was just, it's just amazing. And then, my wife, Pua, she ended up making a bunch of sushi, some garlic nigiri, all kinds of different things. And we were able to kind of partake in that meal. And that's one of the best parts about fishing, right? Is that you get to bring home the catch.
Yeah.
It's not just fishing, it's hunting and fishing. Yeah. That's kind of the drive of why we do the things that we do and why we partake in the activity. But it's just a great time, and you get to, come home and eat, share. Because that's one of the best parts. It's like share with friends. And after we were all done, we had the stainless tables for the cutting. We even had a food saver line where we had like 3 food saver vacuum sealers going. Yeah. And then I estimate we probably cut up about 400 to 500 pounds of fish.
At least 420.
It was
at least 420 pounds of fish.
It was awesome. And by the end of the day, we had to plug in another freezer, and we filled up 2 freezers of just fish.
Yep. It was good stuff.
So, there's going to be a lot of ribbons and presents going home with people at the club for sure.
Yeah.
And this is my best picture because by the time Misha and I tapped out, you and Defrost.
This is at 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the morning.
You and Defrost were just getting started. And I woke up the next morning and I had to go to work. I woke up the next morning to this text that just basically said midnight snack. And the Tuna Fest, Tunapalooza continued on for you guys late into the morning.
Oh, I had 2 cigars that night and I think a half a bottle of whiskey between Paul and I. Yeah. I was sober. By the time I went home, I was sober. When I was cutting fish, I drank some beers. I wasn't even buzzed. Just because you need to keep going. After you guys left, I ran out in support, honoring the Japanese. I got some Japanese whiskey. And
you got that before we left because that was my nightcap.
Okay.
The
Hibiki. That's right. I must have gotten it on the way to the club. It was kind of... Things are meshing together in my mind. But I went to go pick some up at the liquor store at the Corked. Props to the Cork guys. We're ready for the night. We're ready to partake in fun stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's just awesome. This picture explains it all. I mean, look at that sashimi. You got some loin in there. You got some ahi belly and those freshly fried wonton chips.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was good.
You can almost taste it.
I couldn't get to the wontons earlier because I was just busy cutting fish, and I had brought over a few packs, and it just worked out. They're all defrosted and stuff, and we cooked them up and cranked down on the last couple Sapporos we had and wrapped it up.
And I tell you what, that sauce that you put on the sashimi, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Where I texted you that weekend because I flew home back to Hawaii and I brought some fish with me in my carry-on. I had a carry-on backpack cooler, and I probably had about 20 pounds of fish.
Nice.
So I could imagine it going through as a matter of fact, it's all frozen, and I put it through the TSA X-ray machine as my carry-on, and then it gets flagged probably because of the consistency of the fish. So it goes to the inspection part, and it was perfect because the guy that ended up grabbing the bag is like, whose bag is this? Oh, that's my bag. And he goes, oh, do you have anything fragile, any liquids? I said, it's got a lot of frozen fish. And he goes, oh, did you just go out? I was like, yeah, dude, I just went out. He goes, the bluefin bite is hot. So he opens up the cooler and just tons of
yes, it was
bluefin. He goes, oh man, nice job. Okay, you can go. So brought the bluefin down to Hawaii, cooked it up and chopped it up with my brother-in-law, Dustin, who I've mentioned on the show. But then I texted you. I was like, dude, Langosta, what was in your
secret sauce.
In the secret sauce?
So did they like it?
Loved it, man. Loved it. And not only did we just use it on the sashimi, but it literally goes with everything else.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, they live in a town called Kapolei in the Hawaiian Homestead Lands, and there's a Foodland Farms that's over there. And one of the things that I love about going home is just the food about going home.
Yep.
And if ever you're in Hawaii and you're going to Foodland, one thing that you need to get is that they sell fried chicken skin by the pound.
Really?
It is a fried chicken skin.
Okay.
Every time I go to Foodland, it's like I gotta get fried chicken skin and I gotta get the salt and vinegar chicken wings. And if you know, you know. But that fried chicken skin, we were putting the secret sauce on that, and it was just killer. Amazing, killer. We took some of the bellies, we threw them onto the Traeger, and then smoked them because there's nothing better than smoked tuna belly or any belly for that matter.
Yes, sir.
Sashimi or smoked, the belly is just the best part.
Yep.
And then put that secret sauce on that as well. So, that those few special ingredients made it all. So thank you for the recipe.
My pleasure.
And the moral of the story is this is what it's all about. You know, we talk about hunting, we talk about fishing. That's our passion. And the things that we're able to do when we do what we love is provide.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you look at some of these pictures and, you know, the fish isn't gone. It's still in the freezer. So we're going to have many more nights, many more days where we get to kind of share with friends, partake in the camaraderie of cooking, prepping, all that stuff, sharing recipes. So it was a great trip, man. Ranger 85, Captain Jake and the crew, stoked on fishing. Brother Shay was out there. We had a great time on that trip and can't wait to do it again. Wish you were there.
Man, I missed out, but I was there for the after party, which was pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. It was a great after party.
It was awesome, man.
I love butchering fish. I think that for hunting and fishing, you're a complete fisherman, you're a complete hunter if you enjoy the whole beach to table experience.
Yeah.
I think that when you're selecting the animal to take or whatever, maybe the horns aren't that big of a deal. Maybe it's more of the body type, the type of animal that you're taking, because you'll understand what it's gonna, you know, how tasty it's gonna be on the table. And quite frankly, you know, I honestly, the fish that you guys brought, when I first opened the cooler, I was like, oh my Lord, this is like primo bluefin. Like, if we were to eat the quantity that was in the different bowls that we chopped up, I mean, look, you figure the toro, right, at a sushi restaurant is like $30 for 2 little pieces.
Yep.
I don't know. I guess the cheapest I've ever bought it was maybe $20 for 2 little pieces, which is $10 a quarter, a half ounce or something. I don't even know how much fish is on there. It's not a lot. So all of the poke was like primo tuna.
Yeah.
It wasn't skipjack. It wasn't bonita. It wasn't that.
It was the good parts.
It was good parts of good fish. So thanks for sharing. And I, totally enjoyed chopping up all that fish. I got a lot of practice. Lord, I think I cut up about, I think 9 out of the 11 or 9 out of the 12. It was good. It was good times. Hope we do it again. Hope we go on another trip and we overflow the coolers. We got to give them out. Got to give it away to friends and family.
No, I mean, we're going to do it again. And, during this season, the time is hot and we're going to have some special guests on eventually that are going to be talking about the tuna bite because it's that time of year. So
the tuna
it's
bite
tuna time.
is hot, and it's going to stay hot, and hopefully we'll bring on some guests to talk about. Some of these guys have been doing this for 30 years, so I'm curious to see what their perspective, right, on what we're experiencing now, because historically you have to go really a lot further south, right, to be partake in this kind of a bite.
Yeah. And just the evolution of just fishing in California, right?
Sure.
From gear to reels to theories. And, a lot of the stuff comes, a lot of the ideas that eventually kind of make their way across the sea start from Japan. So a lot of that stuff that they've been doing for years and years are starting to catch on. So we got a lot more stories to come. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Rifles, Rods, and Broads, Langosta, and myself, JoJo. Thank you very much for tuning in. And again, like and subscribe.
Thank you, guys. See ya.
Aloha.
Adios, amigo.